Everybody, Lex, Brig, what finger did you put up?
This
okay,
The right one.
that looked really bad from the. Okay, anyway,
I only use that one finger.
Okay,
That's all I use.
So,
Jeez.
all right. So,
Hi, everyone.
moving right past my bad judgment there. Performance tuning for deploy. We're also going to show you inventory today because we actually have the time to do it.
Yeah, we do. Yep.
So anyway, should we just jump right in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we just kind of compress this all down. So we're going to go over to PDQ Deploy, then we're going to go to PDQ Inventory. And basically, we're going to probably take some questions about hardware and things like that, and we'll kind of fill some of those over to Chris, but because he's our phone a friend today. But generally, we're just going to be doing, just deploy and inventory.
Okay.
Performance tunings.
So basically, and this is tuning, right? So not every environment's going to be the same. So they're going to be a little bit different. We're going to give you some tools.
Yep.
Chris is going to make some math jokes because we're going to do math.
Yep.
Because they're awesome.
Math.
Right? And we'll kind of show you how we do the best to tune things around here. So first of all,
first thing, we're going to go to the database.
Mm-hmm.
This is now PDQ Deploy Preferences. So, and this is the new, the version 13 Central Server. So it's in Options Preferences, or Control comma for the fast way. Probably one thing that you should do if you're not rebooting every time, or rebooting very often, but how often should you reboot?
I like to reboot fairly often, once a week at the very least.
Yep. But if you're not going to be able to do that, which calls into other questions, but just assume that you're not doing that or you forget or something like that, every now and again, just run Optimize Database.
Basically, go ahead and click it. Let's see what it does.
It's going to ask you, hey, we're going to close down the service. Is that okay? And yep.
So
Tosses this up.
basically, it's going to run the command vacuum. So you,
It doesn't make that noise though, I promise.
but you can while it's running.
Yes.
So
I do.
basically, it's going to just optimize your database, get rid of empty space, just general database cleanup.
Yep.
Hence the name vacuum.
Yep. And then you'll get this, press enter to close, and it closes that up, and PDQ Deploy starts up again.
So that's probably the first thing, right? Make sure your database is clean because, interaction with your database is key.
Yep, and especially if you have a lot of deployments and just a large number of deployments, because it can get, I don't know, I have hundreds of deployments, so your database can get kind of large, especially if you're keeping a lot of history on there as well. So yeah, optimizing that just cleans it up, makes it run a little bit faster. Hey, no backup scheduled.
Someone else schedule one.
Burp, burp.
All right, so the next thing you guys are going to want to do is optimize things. You want to, the more you automate, the better things are going to be. Let's make sure that we scan something after we've done an application install.
Application install. Okay, so now default, if you've got PDQ Inventory and PDQ Deploy installed on the same machine, by default, the scan after deployment is going to be standard, because that's going to be the default scan that's in inventory if it's just a default install. If you change that around and change the default, Deploy will pick that up, but just out of the box, just installed, PDQ Deploy and Inventory.
We'll run a standard scan, which goes after your hardware and
hot fixes.
a bunch of things.
Yeah, it looks at,
Ultimately, if you install an application, really all you need to update is applications.
So now there are instances when you wouldn't want to run a standard scan, but you would know when those would be, and then you can set those individually. But basically you want to set that to applications. That is much smaller and a much smaller footprint overall on your network, and as far as like size goes, than a standard scan, and it takes a lot less time. So if you're doing especially a deployment out to like hundreds, thousands of machines, setting that to applications, much faster results on that. So
I want to call something out. Shane's on the chat right now. Joining us from the plane right now, and he's talking about optimizing the database.
Yeah, don't optimize while deployment's running.
Yeah. That's a really bad idea.
Yeah. So that warning box that came up on there tells you basically we're going to restart the background service. Also, it's going to kill any deployments that you have running. So we would warn you before you actually click on the yes button.
Reading is fundamental.
Yes, reading is fundamental. Again,
you should do it. So.
Yes. It's short. It's one sentence. So
even though Lex doesn't.
Hey. My illiteracy beam worked well when I shot myself.
But we come in and read the messages for you.
Yes, we do. We do. Send it to text message. Yes.
So Shane's harassing me from the plane?
He's harassing both of us.
Good on you, Shane.
Yeah.
Love you, bro.
Wait till he's back.
I mean, tolerate you, bro.
Yes. All right, and you can also turn off scanning after deployments if you want to, but I have never figured out a reason why you would ever want to do that. So, yeah.
Should we hit a question?
Yeah. Do we have a question?
Dear Lex and Brig, what is the recommended amount of RAM for this application? Currently, I have about 2,000 machines that I roll out to. Sincerely, Matt T.
Surprisingly enough, deploy's not that RAM intensive.
You know, I'll just tell you this. You know, it's like you can buy yourself a Corvette or you can buy a Lamborghini. If it's your machine, get as much RAM as you can. Ultimately, you know, if you're in the 4 to 8 gig of RAM, you should be okay with that, I would imagine.
I think I've run most of my larger installs of PDQ Deploy on about 8.
About 8, yeah.
And
Eight's probably a sweet spot there.
Any issue.
And they're asking about the console. What about, no, this isn't part of the question, but what about RAM needed for the target machine?
Oh,
Target machines?
target machines? That's,
You know,
Less, much
yeah,
less.
less. Yeah. I mean,
We have a pretty low footprint as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably whatever the OS is recommended would be fine on that. Yeah, we start a service, copy over some files, run those, so it'd be no different than if you were to just run like an installation locally.
What'd you have to say, Chris?
I know
Yeah.
Chris has got some thoughts on this too.
Chris has a computer in front of him, and I actually went to the website and looked up the target machines recommended that we recommend, and it's 1 gigabyte of RAM is required, though 2 is recommended.
There you go.
Yep. Does,
Thanks, Chris.
I know that there are machines out
Straight
there
from our website. There we go.
with 2 gigs of memory out there. I think, yes, probably.
Probably.
A few.
Definitely, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, I'm reeling you guys back in.
Okay, all right, sorry. Anyway. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about offline status on machines, okay? Here's the thing. To speed up your deployments, you want to send a ping.
Yep.
Okay,
So you'll see this here, ping before deployment, super important on that one. Yep. And it's on by default, which is great. Just leave that on, because what happens is when you're schedule this out for 1,000 machines and it's going out there and you're going to deploy to that, if you don't have ping before deployment, we'll try and actually connect to that machine, and it will ultimately time out and fail. That is something that you don't want to do.
You're wasting time at that point.
By pinging, however, you're pinging it. Is it online? Great, fantastic. We're going to deploy. If it's not, then we'll go ahead and do whatever you've decided to do with the offline status. So that's a good.
Yeah, leave that one.
Yep, that's a good one. Yep, it saves a lot of time, especially over a long period of time.
So speaking of, let's talk about how many machines we should deploy to. Concurrent targets.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's go to
Performance.
All right. So do you want to explain concurrent targets and total concurrent targets?
No, I'm going to ask the question, what's the difference between the two, Brig?
Okay, so concurrent targets per deployment is just how many can be run per deployment. So if I'm deploying out Chrome, this will run 8 concurrent deployments. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong on this one. The total concurrent targets, however, is the total number of targets for all deployments. So say like you're doing Chrome, you're doing Firefox, or doing Java. Those are the total number of concurrent targets that you can deploy to. So you could it's 8 for one, 8 for another, 8 for another, and then you even have 8 for another one.
So you basically have 4 different deployments that'll be hitting 8 machines at a time.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The concurrent targets, that number should always be bigger, or the
Yes.
total should always be bigger than the concurrent. I
Yep.
can't even talk today, man.
I know what you mean. Yes,
All right.
concurrent targets per deployment is 8. It can never be higher than the total concurrent targets, because then that would be a reverse, and that would be very weird.
That would be bad. I don't even think you can do it in here. I think we've got a little warning on there says you
Yeah,
can't do it.
yeah.
So
I'm sure it's just X, on that. All right, should we talk about copy mode?
we definitely should talk copy mode.
Okay, so copy mode.
Copy mode.
Grab
Basically, and this is how you got to figure this one. If you are running and all your packages are on your console, push mode's going to be good because it's going to come directly off your console.
Yep.
Now, those of you who've got bigger environments and you put that up on a file share, you want to change that to a pull. If you don't, what is going to happen is your console is going to go out to the file share, grab the file, copy it, and then send it out to the target. So you have 2 copies at this point.
Yep.
Put it on pull mode, it just sends instructions out to the target, grabs it from the file share, and does the install from there.
Yep.
So save yourself some network time, put it in pull. The other thing I would suggest, and again, here's a kind of a performance thing. If you're running across a wide area network, Microsoft DFS, replicate to your different sites, do a pull, and they will install locally.
Yep, and Lex has done some excellent videos on DFS. DFS is one of those things that is remarkably simple to set up. Very complicated on the back end, but very simple to set up.
The defaults work really good on that.
Yeah, like 10 minutes, you can have DFS set up. So, and that is something that I would strongly recommend, because you can put the repository on there, you can deploy from that. It's
Save yourself the travel across the WAN multiple times.
yeah, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Question.
Dear Lex and Brig, are there documented best practices / recommendations for various environment sizes we can reference as a starting point and then tweak to our liking? Sincerely, Nicholas P.
I would say that probably the defaults are kind of like the recommended baseline, like here's a standard environment or here's a number of standard environments, and if we were to encapsulate all of those and make an average, this is probably what you get out of the box, other than like some certain things like scans, scanning after applications and things like that. But as far as like the performance goes, those are pretty standard.
Pretty good. Now, where you may want, and we will go into this a little bit later, as soon as you start getting more and more machines, we're talking, a couple of thousand machines, you may want to start tweaking your heartbeat, which is in inventory, and we'll show you that briefly.
Yeah.
Or do you want to do it now, or should we do it?
No, we'll do it in a minute.
We'll do it in a minute.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do it in a minute.
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
the
we're gonna
heartbeat.
cover that.
That's where you're going to want to start tweaking things.
Yeah, but to answer your question, right out of the box, pretty much basically average for an environment. And then what we're talking about here is like things that you need to consider if your environment is different than average, which is most environments.
If it's like
they vary a little bit,
significantly larger.
So yeah.
All right, let's just finish this page up real quick. So,
Service Manager TCP connection.
okay,
Yep.
I like to disable this.
Yep.
Big caveat here, guys.
Yes.
Okay, if you disable the TCP connection, so it's not waiting that 10-second timeout here, you're changing it for the OS on your console.
Yep.
So it will affect things like RCP. Help me out here, Brig.
Oh, anything that requires RPC.
RPC. Yeah,
Anything.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so just know when you change this, it's going to change. Now there is the same setting in inventory.
Yep.
You change it here, you're changing it on the OS for both. So.
Yep. And it makes the registry, some registry changes. And basically, what it tells the service control manager is to use named pipes instead of RPC over TCP.
Yeah.
So this is something that, yes, it's machine-wide, OS specific.
Long story short,
Yep.
makes it faster.
Yes.
All right.
Can
Can
do some
and it can
important
cause you
improvements
some problems. So
with
just be
named
aware.
pipes. I always disable it. Just seems to be it's what I do.
And lastly, on this, test multiple addresses in name resolution.
Yep.
So basically, this if you got laptops that are coming and going, I'm wireless, I'm wired.
Yep.
I'm wireless, I'm wired. I'm in another building and I'm back. Okay, they're going to start having multiple DNS registries because obviously their lease on their previous IP is not disappeared yet. So this will test multiples. Now, if you've got lots and lots and lots of people doing that, you could take a performance hit on it. Although I would still use it just so you can get your deployments taken care of.
Yep. But if you know that if you've set up scavenging and everything like that, and you've seen our other video about DNS and how to have a happy and healthy DNS, and you've set that up correctly, or you have mostly wired clients, or you have mostly wireless clients, and you don't have a lot of DHCP, then you could probably turn this off and be okay. Yeah, because it's just going to reduce a little bit of the hit on the
Overhead,
performance.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, all right. Okay. So let's go to inventory.
Okay, so that's pretty much that's tuning for deploy at this point.
Do we have any additional
deploy
questions?
questions before we jump to inventory?
All right.
Dear Lex and Brig, has the best practice about push-pull file copy mode changed since the central server feature came out? I have PDQ Deploy installed on a Windows 2012 R2 server in server mode with the repository on the server's secondary hard drive, and also on my client W10 in client mode. Can you talk a little bit about it? Thanks, Federico D.
Hi, Federico.
Hey, well, once again, if the files reside on your console, you can do a push. I mean, really, ultimately, it's Chris, Shane. If you're hearing that, man, pipe in. But what's your thoughts on that?
If you're using pull, stick with pull because it's going to be the most efficient. It's not going to hammer down your machine. Granted, this is server client. I understand that, but still, you're not hammering down the server machine then.
Yeah.
And if you can, and you're set up to use pull, always recommend it.
Always pull.
Just about. I can, off the top of my head, not think of a reason to avoid it.
And there was one part of that question where it was, I think Federico had the repository both on the server and the Windows 10. Was I reading that correctly? On
Yeah,
that?
I think so.
Sorry,
on the server and the client?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me.
Just remember this: in your server instance, the server itself is doing all the deployments.
Yeah.
So that's where the repository, wherever that's pointed, that's where it matters.
Yeah. So the repository on the Windows 10 machine, that's not actually
You're in
doing
client
anything.
mode, yeah, it's not
client
doing
mode.
anything.
Because everything comes from the central server, so it's going to refer to whatever is in the repository, which should actually mirror what's in your client console as well. So both of those should match as far as the repository goes, and they'll either reference either the Windows 10 machine or the server 2012 R2, but not both. on that. So whichever one it references in the server and in the client, since they're the same, will be the one that you would want to. Or the
Yeah,
one
Shane just said, please verify that console does not mean client console in the central server setup.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
right. All right, so just to clarify that,
Yep.
thank you, Shane.
Yep.
Okay, server, you have a client console, you have a server. The server is basically where the background service is running. The clients are pointed at that.
Yep.
Okay, that console doesn't have to necessarily be running. Background service takes care of that, but that's where the server is, where your clients are pointed. Okay,
And then if file
Yep.
exists away from the local or central server, then use pull.
Yep.
there we go.
Yep. Useful.
Very good.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Inventory.
Inventory?
Inventory. Oh, I've never heard.
You've never
I've
heard it
never
called
actually-
inventory?
No, I've never have.
All right.
I'm bad, but that's great. I should be so excited about that, but I am. All right.
Same here with the
yeah,
database.
database.
Same. Optimize.
Optimize the database.
Okay.
And yes, that's
If
pretty
scans
basic.
are running if scans are running when you do this, it'll again background.
it does the
service.
same thing.
Reading
Yes,
is
read
fundamental.
the warnings.
Yeah.
Yes, clearly, Lex and I do not do that as often as we should. No,
Ever.
Never
Click. Oh, hey, I
I
probably
do.
should have done that.
All right, performance on inventory. This is pretty basic. Computer scan timeout, 10 minutes. That's good. This is one of those averages that makes sense.
So basically, what's happening, right? We launch the scan.
Yep.
Okay, and the timer starts.
Yep.
At that point, when it finishes queuing, right? It has up to 10 minutes to run on that machine and return data, which most of the time they're in the 5 to 10 minute range usually.
Yeah,
So
and and
it
we're
seems to
doing
be-
and we're doing a lot of concurrent scans, or we're doing quite a few. So yeah, it's a good safe bet. And normally you shouldn't have to change this value. The one that you might have to change is the WMI timeout issue. Yeah, especially if you have to rebuild, or if you have a WMI error and you have to rebuild, that can sometimes be sort of a little bit laggy for a while, like a day.
No,
two,
that's
three.
on the target machine.
On the target
right?
machine.
Target machine.
Yep.
So if you've got a lot of those that you've got to do, it's going to obviously lag.
Yeah, and we're pretty clear about like the WMI timeout error on that. It'll pop up and say WMI timeout.
Yeah.
And so you can go in there and adjust it, probably to about 120 seconds and see if that improves. If not, then you probably want to check your WMI repository to see if there's any corruption on that. And then concurrent scans. This is actually not only concurrent scans, but it also does heartbeats. So concurrent scans, this is a setting that you can up that, and I think Shane has recommended before that you can go up to 64, but
on that,
on that. But this is something that
Play with it a little bit,
as a
but yeah.
baseline. Yeah, 32 seems
So-
to be pretty good. Depends also on the kind of
I
scan.
either got a scan going or I got a ping. Either way, it's counted.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Yep. So that's
every
what-
time your heartbeat goes off, guys,
Yep.
that's counting off those 32.
Yep,
So
the concurrent scan. So if you up that to 40, 48, 64, it's also going to impact heartbeat as well. So just be aware of that. And then finally, again, Service Manager TCP connection, same as it is in deploy. Careful, warning, caveat,
Yeah.
check, make sure everything's
Be
running
careful,
on there. Yep. All right, and then up to network. Here we go, and heartbeat.
here's where the math comes in.
Yes.
Okay. So 300 seconds, 5 minutes.
Yep.
That's about all the math I can do today.
Okay.
Now it's up to you for the rest.
All right. So basically, we have a TTL on our heartbeats of 2,000 milliseconds, 2 seconds. And so just doing a little bit of the math on this, basically what it comes out to is that you can have, in a perfect universe, with a perfect network,
With no delay.
with no delay, all of your machines, very perfect, happy, smiley, happy machines, you could conceivably do 4,800 machines.
Mathematically,
Yeah,
you could conceivably,
do that in those 300 seconds with a concurrent scan rate of 32 concurrent scans. You could do 4,800.
Now, in practice,
Now in practice,
That
Everybody
will never
wa-
happen.
everybody watching knows that
will
it doesn't
never,
work that
ever
way.
happen. So now that Briggs broken down
Yes.
the math for you,
Yeah.
realistically, okay, if you start thinking about this, right, you have a little delay,
Yep.
you add some seconds to everything. So what happens now is, let's say you've got 2,000 machines, okay, it starts the heartbeat scan,
Yep.
Typical network stuff. Before it ends, it started the next heartbeat scan. So you
Yep.
could be pinging
consistently.
heartbeats
Yeah,
consistently.
you could be stuck in this eternal loop of ping.
And your security guys will probably be pissed.
Unless
So,
unless you are the security person, and then you start getting like IDS notifications, like what is going on? I'm DDoSing my own machines.
so here's the thing, guys. Once you start hitting like 1,500 machines, it's probably a good idea to start increasing that interval.
Yep.
Okay. Now, where the sweet spot is, I mean, we broke down the math for you. I don't know what your network environment is, how fast your network is. If if you've got, networks are networks. They're all individual. So usually we would suggest around 1,500 machines, you would double that.
Yep.
Okay. That's just kind of a rule of thumb, and then you can tweak it from there. So basically what that's going to do is if a machine's going to go from an offline to an online state and you've changed it from 5 minutes to 10 minutes with the 600 seconds, it will take longer for inventory, obviously, to recognize that it's online, but you are not destroying your network with pings.
Yep. Yeah, because that's kind of an important thing. And then notice too here that we have like the test multiple addresses and name resolution, that's automatically off by default in inventory, even though it's on in deploy, because there's differences because we do AD sync and things like that. So if that's something that you need to do in order to perform your scans, just make sure that you go ahead and check that as well. So,
Chris, did you have anything, man?
Yeah.
You looked all contemplative over there.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about the TTL we discussed, the hard limit of 2,000 milliseconds for the ping. Just kind of going back to what we mentioned earlier about using ping for before deployment. In cases where you have high latency environments, you actually want to disable that, otherwise you're going to fail a lot. That's all.
Yeah.
Just a side note.
That's true.
So,
Good insight.
anyway,
Yep.
semi-related, sorry.
Yeah.
No.
I forget that latency is still kind of an issue.
Yep,
every now and again.
I know.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It's like, it's 27.
Someone around here set up a great network.
Yeah, that's right. But
Do we have any questions?
It is.
Yeah, we can take one.
Okay, cool.
Hey, duders! We have a setup that involves a second untrusted domain. We want to use PDQ Deploy Central Server with that untrusted domain. However, because it is untrusted, we can't add console users from that domain. What's the best way to handle console users from an untrusted domain? Sincerely, Tom P.
Hi, Tom.
You wagged a finger. Go for it.
Okay, all right. The couple of ways of you could do this, depending on how your machine is set up and the relationship that you have on that machine. You can change the background service to go on that other domain, depending on your machine. If it's not domain joined, you can authenticate using that method, where you're using one domain's credentials for the background service, change those to the other domain's background service credentials, and use it that way.
Okay, so to be clear, you would have to manually go change
Yes,
those.
you'd have to do a manually change.
All
Console users, you can add multiple console users into that once the background service is changed. This is not what I like.
It's one of those you can do it, but it's not probably the best.
Yeah. Typically, the option that I like best is just to get rid of the domain entirely. So go through the horns of the dilemma between the two domains and just go down the local user route, which you can actually push out on GPO on both domains and have that be the same. So you can have the background user as a local user, so long as that user is an administrator on the machine.
On all the machines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and going local just bypasses all of that.
Yeah.
So that's an option. Chris, do you have a?
You said it perfect.
What
That's
he
exactly
said,
what I
yeah.
would recommend.
Yeah.
That
He said.
he wins.
I like,
Brig
and
wins.
I just generally like using local users, period, for PDQ. I mean, you can use a service account, you can use a domain admin account, but going local, yeah,
Bypasses a lot of that.
yeah. You can. It's wide. So
Is there anywhere you can point him for that GPO? Do we have that GPO out anywhere?
we don't. No, but if you just look up just look up local create local admin or local user in local admin group in Google, one of the first couple will come up. Yeah.
All right.
Should anyway. I'm hopeful. All right. Okay. So let's see. We've covered heartbeat and everything else. Let's go to scanning. And this is where things can get really interesting. Okay. So by default, if you notice, we're just going to reset this. By default, offline status, ping before scanning. Just like deployments, you want to turn this on. Yep.
Again, if they're there, then we'll do a scan. Otherwise, we just move on.
Yep. And then Wake-on-LAN. Now,
Yeah. We didn't talk about this in deploy either.
Yeah.
Use this very judiciously.
Yes.
Okay? And the reason being is, machine's not online, so we're going to send a Wake-on-LAN. It is now at that point can wait up to 5 minutes.
Yep.
Okay. Waiting sucks.
Yes. It's not really a traffic thing. It's a wait thing. It's a time
just
thing.
time.
Yeah.
So use this. I would use this, in specific situations in deploy. I would use it at a deployment level, not at a global level. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a global level setting here in inventory. So once again, be very judicious.
Yeah, it depends on how much you really need that scan data, because especially since we introduced heartbeat trigger into scanning, so you can actually do that. So you don't actually have to send a Wake-on-LAN. You'll just scan that computer once it comes online. So, but again, that also comes with its own headaches, which we'll get to. All right, and I think that's pretty much basically it as far as the scanning goes on here.
No, but scan profiles.
Scan
a few things we should
profiles.
talk about there.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, standard scan, and the default running 7 days. If we open this up, you'll see it basically runs all these scanners to collect this data. If you're running this multiple times a day, I'm just going to tell you the hardware, unless you're in a environment where you're changing hardware a lot, I can't see a need to do this. I mean, if you are, I guess there is, but I mean, so ultimately, if you do that once a week, every 7 days, that's good.
Yep.
And just understand, if you're doing that on a very frequent basis, if you also run applications is part of the standard scan, so you're kind of doubling up on things. So it's a good idea to go take a look before you set your triggers on these at what's actually being scanned, and then so you're not doubling up applications and hardware and stuff like that.
And a standard scan from start to finish is, how many megs is that?
We ran it it's about 4 megs
About
with the
4
data coming
megs?
back, depending on what is in there. If you're doing file scans, registry scans, that's obviously going to be bigger, but the standard scans about 4 meg.
So that's 4 megs of traffic, and then you times that by 4,000 machines. That's a lot of network traffic. So yeah, judicious use of the standard scan. Yeah, very important. And again, you want to change that over and deploy to applications. And if you need to, you can also create your own. So say like you just need something that's a little hybridized, so you can add multiple scanners. So I can add disks, and I can add like...
Let's say you want to do applications and hot fixes in the same scanner.
Exactly, absolutely. So
So
I could do all of those things without necessarily needing to run that. It just gives me what I need or what I want, and then I can run that on a schedule.
Speaking of triggers.
Yep. Heartbeat.
Okay.
Careful. Warning.
Yeah. Go for it. I'm going to let you do this one again.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, here's a scenario that, and I'm sure probably Chris might come in with like even a better one, but here's a scenario where you have a standard scan. So you've got a school district, and teacher moves from this office to this office to this location to this location. You've got admin staff moving around, and throughout the day, probably people going to 2 or 3 different office buildings or two or three different buildings, period. And you set this heartbeat up, so it's going to mark them as offline. And then it's going to mark them online when they go into that new building and they get a new IP address, and they're going to get a scan. And then they're going to leave there, and then they're going to go somewhere else. And they're going to get a scan.
Online
again,
scan.
Offline, online. So you can see that there's this perpetual scanning scenario going on. And so you want to be very, very careful with that.
Yeah.
Yep. Chris, could you think of anything more terrifying about the heartbeat?
Unless you're putting something like a reboot step in a heartbeat package.
Yes.
That's about the only other
There we
my
go.
favorite.
probably want to consider.
That is my favorite.
Build a heartbeat trigger on a reboot. There you
Yep,
go.
on
You
a
get this
reboot.
endless-
Yep, endless. Yes. This
No, that'd be a bad day.
Yeah. So heartbeat scanning or the heartbeat trigger is fantastic.
It's powerful.
in everything, but
Just be aware of what you're
just be
doing.
aware that with that power, there is also warning.
Responsibility.
The responsibility, yes. Not messing things up. All right, let's see. So we got the ping for scanning. We got that.
Oh,
and-
scan profiles. Let's say we're going to do a file scan or a registry scan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Another thing, yes, to be aware of. File and registry.
again, this can be very intensive. Why don't you build that one you showed me yesterday? It would scan every drive,
Oh, yeah.
So basically, let's say you're going to go out and look for large PST files, okay? Now, if you know where they reside, the further down the directory path you go, the shorter that scan is going to be, because it's not going to have to scan the whole drive, okay? Now, if you take a look at this right here, which is kind of hard to see, but basically it's a question mark : /bang or splat splat.pst.
Yep.
That is going to go scan every directory on every attached drive that's on your machine.
Yep. For
That
PST
will take
files.
a very, very long time.
Yes, that will.
And that's a bad thing. Don't do that.
Yes. So yeah, you definitely want to, as you said, you want to go in as far as you possibly can in the directory structure before you do a file scan. But if you just imagine though, even though you've got like a registry scan or something like that that's very specific, it's still going to take a lot of time. So if you're adding that to additional scans and things like that, just be aware that these can take time, and you can test it out on your own machine, and you can test it out on a couple of other test machines.
Test before you launch that. Yeah.
Because you don't want to send something like this out to like 4,000 machines and then leave for the night and then come back the next day and
Now do it in the morning.
Yeah.
And then leave for the afternoon.
that's it.
There you
Yep,
go.
that's it.
Everyone will
Go to
hate you.
lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So And the same thing when it comes to registry scans. The further down the hive you go, the better.
Yep, the better.
So
You know, and you can do multiples too. So if you need to search for multiple areas or multiple directories, you can also do that within here too. You can just create a new list within, where did my mouse go? There it is. You can just create something else that's even more specific. So you can either like C, Windows, and you can just have multiple lists. So you can actually
one scan type per line, those guys.
Yep.
So
Yep,
this
one
scan
scan
and
type.
the next scan. So.
Yep.
Chris, any thoughts?
Nope.
It's a radio show, man. You got to speak up, buddy.
All right.
Well, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this will help you guys tune your stuff up a little bit, get it a little bit faster. Again, tuning is not a specific perfect science.
Yep.
It's a swag, a scientific, wild guess of some type.
Yes.
Something between there.
Yeah.
Anywho, thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you later.
Thanks
Thanks,
very much.
Monica, for being on with us
Yes.
today.
Thanks, Monica.
Thanks for joining our webcast today. Congratulations, Nicholas P. and Tom P., winners of PDQ Swag. Also, Kurt H., winner of our PDQ Vintage Floppy Coaster. Get us your info at webcast@pdq.com. We'll get that sent out to you as soon as we can. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you back here next week.